Right now, 1 in 3 women are dealing with this really exhausting silent epidemic. 1 in 3.
Yeah, that's a massive number.
Right. And yet, like, nearly 70% of them have never even mentioned it to a doctor. We're talking about, mapping out every public restroom before you even leave the house, or giving up running entirely.
Or losing sleep because you're waking up 4 times a night.
Exactly. It's just this constant lingering anxiety about like laughing too hard in public. And urinary incontinence is treated like this inevitable, embarrassing secret of aging or just, post-childbirth life.
Which is entirely untrue.
Right. So today we are tearing that assumption apart. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore exactly how pelvic floor exercises, usually called Kegels, and just a few highly specific lifestyle tweaks can effectively manage and often completely stop urinary leaking and urgency.
Yeah, because it is entirely possible to take back control of your body. The goal today is to move completely away from the embarrassment and focus purely on the mechanical reality of our anatomy.
I love that, making it about the plumbing, right?
Exactly. Because once you understand the actual physics of what's happening inside your pelvis and, the specific biology of your bladder, you can apply this knowledge practically. You really do not have to just live with it.
So to fix the plumbing, we really need to understand the support structure holding it all together. I usually hear the pelvic floor described as a kind of hammock. Where exactly is this hammock located?
So imagine a thick, incredibly strong, interwoven layer of muscles and ligaments. It stretches from the pubic bone at the very front of your pelvis, all the way underneath you, and attaches to the tailbone, the coccyx at the back.
Okay, so literally forming the floor of the pelvic basin.
Right. It's a load-bearing structure. It is constantly supporting the physical weight of the bladder, the bowel, and the uterus.
Wow, that's a lot of weight to just hold up all day.
It really is. And it's not just a passive shelf either. It actively controls the openings that pass through it. So the urethra, the vagina, and the anus.
It's the foundation of the house. So if that foundation weakens maybe from like the sheer physical strain of pregnancy or hormonal changes causing tissue thinning during menopause.
Or even just the repeated downward force of a chronic cough.
Oh, right. I guess that hammock starts to sag then. Is that why someone might leak a little bit when they sneeze or jump?
That is precisely the mechanism behind what we call stress incontinence. It's really just a structural resistance issue.
Like a math equation. Downward force versus upward support.
Exactly. When you laugh or cough or jump, you're creating this sudden spike in downward abdominal pressure. If the hammock is stretched out or the muscle fibers have weakened, that downward pressure simply overcomes the upward resistance of the pelvic floor.
And so the valve gets forced open for a fraction of a second.
Right, and urine escapes.
Okay, but what about the people who aren't coughing or jumping? What about when you just suddenly frantically have to go to the bathroom right now and you're like sprinting down the hallway?
Yeah, so that is a different mechanism entirely. That's known as urge incontinence, or an overactive bladder.
So it's not about the hammock being weak?
Well, it's less about passive physical weakness and more about erratic signaling. The bladder itself is a muscle called the detrusor.
Okay, the detrusor.
Right. And in an overactive bladder, that detrusor muscle begins spasming and contracting involuntarily long before the bladder is actually full.
Oh, wow. So it's basically misfiring.
Exactly. It sends this frantic, overwhelming signal to your brain that you are about to void, which creates that sudden, desperate panic.
Okay, let's unpack this. If we're dealing with a muscle issue, whether it's the hammock being too weak to hold back a sneeze or struggling to contain a bladder spasm, why is this so notoriously difficult for people to fix?
That's a great question.
Right. Like if I want to make my bicep stronger, I just pick up a dumbbell and curl it. Why do so many people do pelvic floor exercises completely wrong?
Well, the hurdle is almost entirely sensory. Because think about it, your bicep is external, you can watch your arm move, you can see the muscle bunch up.
Yeah, your brain gets immediate, obvious feedback that you're using the right muscle.
Exactly. But the pelvic floor muscles are entirely internal. You have zero visual feedback. So because of this sensory deficit, when someone decides to just, squeeze their pelvic floor, their brain searches desperately for a muscle it can feel.
Oh, I see. So they just end up tensing whatever is nearby.
Right. They compensate, they'll squeeze their glutes, or they'll clamp their inner thighs together, or they suck their stomach in really violently.
Which doesn't help the hammock at all.
Not at all. They're exhausting themselves, flexing entirely the wrong muscle groups, and leaving the actual hammock completely disengaged.
So let's get into the mechanics of how to actually find it then. Because if I can't see it, I'm just guessing in the dark. Do I just try to clench everything in that general area and hope for the best?
No, clenching everything is exactly what you want to avoid.
Yeah.
You have to isolate the muscle using very specific mental imagery.
Okay, what kind of imagery?
The most effective way to find it is to sit comfortably and imagine you are in a crowded room and you're trying to stop yourself from passing wind from your back passage.
Okay, a highly relatable scenario for most people.
Yeah, it engages the posterior part of the hammock, and then while you're holding that sensation, you simultaneously imagine trying to stop a flow of urine from the front.
Both at the same time.
Right. When you combine those two intentions, you should feel a distinct sensation of tightening, but also lifting upwards inside the pelvis. Think of it like a physiological zipper, zipping up from back to front and pulling up and inside.
Zipping up and pulling inside. Man, it really does sound like trying to wink without moving the rest of your face.
It really is.
Yeah.
Your whole body just wants to pitch in and help out.
And you have to actively reject that help. Right.
Yes. A poor pelvic floor contraction involves squeezing your buttocks, bringing your knees together, or holding your breath. If you are doing any of those things, you're masking the pelvic floor.
It sounds like it takes really intense mental focus at first.
It does. You have to isolate that internal lift while keeping your glutes completely soft and your breathing steady.
Now, I want to ask about a really common piece of advice I hear all the time. A lot of people think the ultimate way to practice this is to sit on the toilet, start peeing, and then try to stop the stream mid-flow. Is that how we should be testing this?
Absolutely not. That is actually one of the most damaging misconceptions out there. You should never practice your exercises by repeatedly stopping your urine stream.
Wait, really? Why? It seems like the perfect feedback loop to know if the muscle actually works.
I know it sounds logical, but it disrupts a deeply ingrained neurological process called the voiding reflex.
The voiding reflex.
Yeah. When you sit on the toilet and begin to urinate, your pelvic floor relaxes and your bladder muscle contracts to push the urine out.
Okay, they work opposite each other.
Right. So if you suddenly slam the pelvic floor shut midstream, you are sending conflicting signals to your nervous system.
Oh, so you're basically confusing the software.
Exactly. And over time, doing this repeatedly can actually teach your bladder not to empty completely.
Wow. So you end up leaving residual urine stagnant in the bladder.
Yes, which is a massive risk factor for severe urinary tract infections. You are really only supposed to imagine stopping the flow when you're exercising on the couch or at your desk.
That makes total sense. You don't want to confuse the software while trying to upturn the hardware. So, assuming I've finally figured out the isolation, I'm sipping up, I'm lifting, my glutes are relaxed, I'm breathing normally, what is the actual workout? Do I just flex it as hard as I can for 20 minutes while I watch TV?
Definitely not. A sustained 20-minute flex would completely fatigue the muscle. Your pelvic floor hammock actually requires two completely different types of training.
Oh, because they're different types of muscle fibers.
Exactly. First, you need endurance. For this, you train the slow twitch muscle fibers.
Okay, how do we do that?
You squeeze and lift the pelvic floor, hold that contraction steadily for up to 10 seconds, and then crucially, you let it completely relax.
Wait, why is the relaxation part so crucial? If I want it to be tight, shouldn't I keep it tense?
It's a common thought, but a muscle that is constantly tense actually becomes exhausted and brittle. If your pelvic floor never relaxes, it loses its elasticity and its ability to act as a shock absorber.
Oh, so it actually becomes weaker.
Yes. So you hold for up to 10 seconds, completely release, and repeat that slow hold up to 10 times. That builds the stamina required to hold your pelvic organs up all day long.
Got it. Slow twitch for all-day stamina. So what's the second type of training?
The second movement targets the fast twitch muscle fibers. These are the fibers responsible for power and instant reaction.
Okay, the reflex fibers.
Right. For these, you do fast pull-ups. You quickly tighten the muscle as hard and as fast as you can, and then immediately release it.
Like a quick flick.
Exactly. You repeat that rapid flick up to 10 times. This builds the explosive reflex you need when you suddenly trip or sneeze or burst out laughing.
Okay, so it's 10 slow endurance holds and 10 fast power flicks. How often am I doing this routine?
3 times a day. Every single day. And this is where expectation management is vital because you are literally building new muscle tissue from scratch.
And that biological process just takes time.
It does. It typically requires 3 to 5 months of daily practice to see a significant, lasting improvement in your symptoms.
3 to 5 months of doing invisible homework 3 times a day. That is a massive behavioral hurdle. I mean, how do people realistically stick to an exercise they can't even see, that doesn't make them sweat, and takes months to show results?
That is where the behavioral science becomes just as important as the physiology. because relying purely on memory usually fails.
I believe that. I'd forget by day 2.
Right. Which is why digital therapeutics, like the Squeezy app, which is widely utilized over in the UK, have proven incredibly effective here.
Oh, so an app to keep you on track.
Yeah, the app provides customizable reminders, visual cues to help pace the slow and fast contractions, and a log to track consistency.
Like habit tracking. Does it actually work?
The data shows that when users have these external behavioral prompts, over 90% successfully maintain their daily routine, leading to vast symptom improvement. It externalizes the discipline.
I love that. Okay, so that handles the long-term rebuilding phase. But is there a way to use this defensively in the short term? Like if I feel a massive sneeze coming on right now and I know my hammock isn't fully rebuilt yet, what do I do?
You use a functional technique commonly called the knack. It is incredibly simple, but highly effective.
The knack. I like the sound of that. How does it work?
It involves consciously drawing up and strongly tightening the pelvic floor right before any activity that you know will increase your abdominal pressure.
So I'm basically manually bracing for impact.
Precisely. You feel the tickle of a sneeze, you squeeze and hold. You're about to deadlift a heavy bag of soil in the garden. You squeeze and
Yep.
hold.
So you're actively pre-tensing the hammock against the downward force before the force actually hits the valve.
Exactly. It gives you immediate protection.
That's great because it gives you immediate agency.
Now, everything we just talked about perfectly addresses the structural failure, right? Like the stress leaks from coughing or lifting.
Yes, the mechanical side.
But let's pivot to the other nightmare we mentioned earlier, this sudden, terrifying urge. If my pelvic floor is strong, but my bladder is spasming and my brain is screaming that I'm about to wet myself in the middle of a grocery store, how do I stop that?
That requires bladder training, which is essentially cognitive behavioral therapy for your urinary system.
CBT for your bladder.
Right. When that frantic urge hits, your instinct is to rush to the bathroom as fast as possible, but rushing actually increases the abdominal pressure and jostles the bladder, making a leak more likely.
Okay, so what's the protocol then?
The protocol here is urge suppression. You actually have to stop walking. Stand completely still, or sit down if you can.
Stand completely still. That sounds completely terrifying. If my brain is telling me the dam is breaking, standing perfectly still feels like the worst possible idea. How do you actually trust that? I know it feels counterintuitive, but there is a profound neurological reflex you're trying to trigger.
Okay, what reflex?
When you stand still, you rapidly tighten and release your pelvic floor 5 or 6 times. By vigorously engaging the pelvic floor, you are sending a powerful inhibitory signal up your spinal cord to the bladder.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This signal chemically tells the spasming detrusor muscle to relax.
So flexing the floor literally forces the bladder to calm down.
Exactly. You are manually overriding the spasm. And while you do these quick flicks, you distract your mind. Count backwards from 99 by 7s. Focus on your breathing.
Just taking the mental focus away from the panic?
Right. You wait for the peak of the urge to drop, and only then do you walk slowly and calmly to the toilet. The goal of bladder training is to slowly stretch out the interval between your visits.
So you're retraining the brain-bladder connection.
Yes, so it can tolerate a larger volume of urine before sending that panic signal.
Now, this brings up a really common habit I see everywhere. Going just in case. You're about to leave the house, you don't really have to pee, but you force a trip to the bathroom anyway to make sure you're empty. Does that help?
Actually, it's one of the worst things you can do for an overactive bladder.
Wait, really? Why?
Because when you consistently go just in case, you are habitually emptying your bladder when it's only partially full. Over time, you're actively training your bladder to send those severe urgency signals at lower and lower volumes.
Wow, so you are literally shrinking the functional capacity of the organ.
Exactly.
Hold on, I want to push back on this whole concept of volume for a second. Here's where it gets really interesting. If my core problem is that my bladder is constantly full, or spasming, or I'm leaking urine throughout the day, basic common sense says I should just stop drinking so much water.
That's what most people think.
Right. If the boat is sinking, you don't add more water. Cut off the supply.
It sounds entirely logical, but it is actually a massive trap known as the hydration paradox.
A hydration paradox.
Yes. If you severely restrict your fluid intake, your body is still going to filter waste and produce urine. But because there's very little water, that urine becomes highly concentrated.
So it turns dark yellow or orange.
Right. And critically, it becomes highly acidic.
And what does highly acidic urine do?
It acts as a chemical irritant. The inside lining of your bladder, the urothelium, is highly sensitive. When it's bathed in concentrated acidic urine, it becomes severely irritated and inflamed.
Oh, wow.
And an irritated bladder is a spasming bladder. It will try to forcefully eject that acidic fluid immediately, even if there's only a tablespoon of it in there.
No way. So by drinking less water, I am actually manufacturing the exact spasms I'm trying to avoid.
Yes, you end up with a frantic urge to pass a tiny amount of burning urine. To break that cycle, you must drink adequately, usually around 1.5 to 2 liters of water a day.
So the extra water dilutes it.
Exactly, makes the urine pale and neutral, and physically soothes the bladder lining, which drastically reduces those urgency spasms.
The hydration paradox, that is wild. So if the acidity of what's sitting in our bladder matters that much, what else are we consuming that is secretly sabotaging this whole system?
Well, caffeine is a primary offender.
Of course it is. It's always caffeine.
Sorry to say it, but yes, it's a diuretic, meaning it makes your kidneys produce urine faster. But more importantly, caffeine acts as a direct chemical irritant to the detrusor muscle, heightening its reflex to spasm.
Are there other foods that do that?
Yes, spicy foods, artificial sweeteners, and carbonated fizzy drinks have a very similar inflammatory effect on the bladder lining.
What about mechanical saboteurs, like things outside of our diet that are wrecking the hammock?
The most overlooked saboteur is chronic constipation.
Wait, how does digestion affect the bladder?
It's all about shared real estate and physical pressure. The bowel sits right alongside the bladder, resting on the exact same pelvic floor hammock.
Oh, right. They share the foundation.
Exactly. So if you are chronically constipated, you're likely spending significant time on the toilet, bearing down and straining to empty your bowels.
And that pushes on the hammock.
Right. That extreme, repetitive, downward physical force stretches and permanently damages the delicate ligaments of the pelvic floor. So maintaining your hydration and fiber intake to ensure soft, easy digestion is absolutely critical for preserving your urinary continence.
I want to ask about another bathroom habit, hovering. Anyone who has ever used a questionable public restroom knows the hover.
Yes, the classic hover.
You know, you squat above the seat so you don't have to touch it.
Yeah.
Mechanically, what is that actually doing?
Hovering is disastrous for your pelvic floor function. When you hover, you are forcing your glutes, your quadriceps, and your pelvic floor muscles into a high-tension, weight-bearing state just to hold your body up.
Because you're essentially doing a wall sit without a wall.
Precisely. And remember what we established earlier. The bladder can only fully empty when the pelvic floor is completely relaxed.
Oh, so if it's tensed up, holding your body weight.
The urinary sphincter cannot fully open. You end up cutting the stream short, leaving a pool of residual urine in the bladder.
Which leads to returning to the bathroom 20 minutes later or getting a bacterial infection.
Exactly. To empty properly, you must sit down, let your muscles soften, and ideally use a small footstool so your knees are elevated higher than your hips, which optimally aligns the pelvis.
I guess even our posture on the toilet matters.
It really does.
Yeah.
Everything is connected.
Now, I know we've covered an immense amount of ground here, and some listeners might be thinking, you know, I've tried Kegels, I drink water, I don't hover, and I am still struggling.
And that is completely valid.
Right, so it's important to mention that if behavioral and physical adjustments don't solve it, medical science has next steps.
Oh, absolutely. There is clinical biofeedback where they use sensors to project your muscle activity onto a screen so you can literally watch your internal muscles working, ensuring you are squeezing the right tissue.
That sounds super helpful for the sensory deficit we talked about.
It is. There are also vaginal cones, electrical stimulation, and even medications designed specifically to block the chemical signals that cause the bladder to spasm. You are never out of options.
That is so reassuring.
The overarching takeaway here is that continence is not an isolated, uncontrollable plumbing issue. It is a dynamic, holistic, mechanical system.
So bringing it all together, what does this actually mean for your daily life? It means that urinary incontinence does not get to dictate your choices anymore.
No, it doesn't.
By visualizing that internal zipper and committing to doing both the slow endurance holds and the rapid power flicks every single day, you are actively rebuilding a core structural foundation.
And by drinking enough water to dilute your urine and utilizing the urge suppression reflex when panic sets in, you are retraining your nervous system.
Exactly. You are rehabilitating a crucial part of your anatomy that allows you to move freely through the world.
It really is a full body alignment.
This knowledge is about reclaiming your freedom. It's the freedom to join a running club, the freedom to laugh at a joke without instinctively crossing your legs.
And the freedom to sleep through the night without a map of your house's bathrooms burned into your anxious brain.
Yes, you possess the mechanical ability to retention the ropes of that hammock.
And I want to leave you with one final intriguing thread to pull on. We have spent this entire deep dive focusing on how strengthening the pelvic floor acts as a valve to stop unwanted leaks.
Right, the plumbing side of things.
But biologically, these exact same muscles serve a dual purpose. They are the primary muscular engine responsible for sexual sensation and the physical intensity of orgasm.
Oh, wow.
So, if a daily, targeted exercise routine can entirely rebuild your bladder control, could consciously training this neglected muscle group secretly unlock a profoundly deeper level of physical intimacy and connection? Something for you to ponder.